What's going on, guys? I welcome you all to this video tutorial, and in this video tutorial we'll be going through our third property of entropy, wherein we'll be discussing upper bound on entropy. This is your Benak Patel, and let's get started. And in order to know more about this upper bound on entropy, let's think of a situation wherein there are two friends of yours who are contesting for a class representative election. So right now we are having two of your friends. Let's assume this to be person 1 and person 2. In this situation, I can think of two scenarios. Scenario number 1, where both are equally popular and competent. And I can think of scenario number 2, where only P1 is popular and P2 is not. Now here, let's start with scenario number 2. In scenario number 2, the results are quite obvious and will not create curiosity among your friends or among the audience, and hence less information or no information is conveyed. So this is about our second scenario. So for example, if I think of person 1 to be Namo and person 2 to be Raga, it's quite obvious that who will win, and it doesn't create any curiosity among the audience or among the people, and hence it carries no information. Whereas if I think of our scenario number 1, where both P1 and P2 are equally competent and popular, then it creates lot of curiosity among the audience. So here results are not obvious. As results are not obvious, it creates curiosity among people, and thereby it conveys more information. And it's quite easy to say that it conveys more information. But this more information has to be within some range. Or in other words, it cannot exceed a certain value. Or what we all can say is it has to have an upper bound. So here this curiosity will be very high only when both P1 and P2 are equally likely to win. So thereby, now let's try to find mathematical expression for upper bound on entropy. So that's our property number 3. And to start with, we already know how to calculate entropy of a source, that which is mathematically given as h of s equal to summation I starting from 1 to m pk log to the base to 1 by p. And for time being, let's assume that there are n symbols in source alphabet m, such that I can think of m to be containing s0, s1, till sn minus 1. So because I'm starting from 0, on a whole I'll be having n symbols in it. So in place of m, I can replace it with capital N pk log to the base to 1 by pk. So this is our formula for entropy. Now let's multiply with negative sign on both sides. And if I do so, I'll be getting negative sign over here. And to this expression, let me add log to the base to n on both sides. Now if I rearrange this, I'll be getting. So what I have done is simple mathematical rearrangement, where I had log to the base to n over here, that which I have moved it to term 1 in my next step. Let this be our equation number 1. And we do also know, if I add all the probabilities of all the n symbols, k starting from 1 to n pk, I'll end up with 1. Because overall probability cannot exceed value 1. So what I'll do is, I'll think of me to be having 1 over here. 1 multiplied by log to the base 2 of n will not alter its value. It remains as it is. And in place of 1, what I'll do is, so because we already know that 1 is nothing but equal to summation of k starting from 1 to n of pk. So I'll be substituting this formula in the place of 1. So in our next step, I'll replace 1 with summation k starting from 1 to n of pk times log to the base to n minus summation I starting from 1 to n pk log to the base to 1 by pk. And over my LHS side, I'll be having the same expression log to the base to n minus h of s. Now over here, so what I'll do is I'll just replace this variable I with k, because it doesn't matter. I can think of this as my term 1 and this as my term 2. Now if I compare my term 1 with term 2, out of these two, what term is common. What is the common thing between these two terms? And you can easily say that in both the expressions, this part summation k starting from 1 to n of pk is common, and hence I can take out this term as common from term 1 and term 2, and if I rewrite this, I'll get it as equal to summation k starting from 1 to n pk, and within the square brackets log to the base 2 n minus log to the base 2 1 by pk. All I have done is I have taken these two terms as common, and whatever residue is left out, I have rewritten this. And one of the logarithmic identities says that if I move this pk, that which is on the denominator, onto my numerator, this log gets negative sign in front of it. When I get this negative sign onto its front, negative into negative will become positive. If I'm having some term like AB, and if I apply logarithmic function to this multiplication in between a and b gets converted to addition. So it gets converted to log a plus log, and vice versa also holds good. So thereby, because I'm having two logs which are having common bases, and here I'm having two terms that which I can map on variable a as well as variable b. So in fact, I can combine these two terms and I can rewrite it as log to the base 2 of n into pk. And we do also remember one more logarithmic indices, that which says if we are having expression like log to the base a of b, I can rewrite this as log to the base e of b divided by log to the base e of a. Let me use this logarithmic identity back in our expression, where in place of a I am having 2, so in fact I'll get it as equal to this. So in place of b we are having n into pk. So if I make use of this identity, I'll replace this expression. So I'll have it as equal to log to the base e npk whole divided by log to the base e of 2. And we also know that for logarithmic, if the base is e, that is exponential, then we call it as natural logarithm. Shorthand for log to the base a is ln. So here what I'll do is I'll replace log to the base e with ln. So I'll just replace the one that which is in my numerator, and I'll keep my denominator as it is because of our next step. So here, if we consider this denominator term 1 divided by log to the base e of 2, and if I expand this, I'll get it as equal to 1 divided by, I can rewrite this as log to the base 10 2 divided by log to the base 10 e, and I can move this all the way to the numerator, and I'll get it as equal to log to the base 10 of e divided by log to the base 10 2. This in turn is equal to log to the base 2 of e. So we got to know that 1 by log to the base e of 2 is as good as log to the base 2 of e, that which is in the numerator. So let me rewrite this on our numerator. And over here log to the base 2 of e is a constant, and I can easily move this out of my summation, and I'll get it as equal to log to the base 2e summation k starting from 1 to n pk times natural log ln of npk. So this entire thing is equal to, so this is where we started from, and we ended up with this expression equal to log to the base 2e summation pk times natural log of npk. So let me mark this as my expression number 2. Now to continue with this derivation, in mathematics we have a relation for logarithms. Let's consider a standard relation in logarithms, that which says natural log of 1 by x is always greater or equal to 1 minus x. So this is our standard expression, and let me call this as my expression number 3. So how can I believe that natural log of 1 by x is always greater than or equal to 1 minus x? For that, let me plot these two functions in graph. So Desmos is a very powerful tool wherein you can plot your functions. So here is our y-axis and this is our x-axis, and over here let's plot our very first function. And what was our very first function? Natural logarithm of 1 by x. So if I plot this, so what you got to do is you got to just type ln of 1 divided by x. So just by doing that, all we can say is we have right now got a curve that which is red in color. So this curve is trying to represent the function ln of 1 by x. So if y is equal to ln of 1 by x, I'll end up with this kind of curve. In a similar way, let's plot our second function where I'm having y equal to 1 minus x. And if I plot y is equal to 1 minus x, I'll get it as a line that which is having negative slope. And here you can see that both these two functions will intersect at a common point. They are intersecting at a common point when x is equal to 1. So let me zoom this. So it's clearly evident that both the functions y is equal to natural log of 1 by x and y is equal to 1 minus x, they both intersect at a common value when x is equal to 1. And for remaining values of x, when I compare these two curves, the red color curve will always have a greater value compared to that of this blue line. And hence, this mathematical formula is a standard one. So all I can say is natural log of 1 by x is always greater, or it can only be equal to when x is equal to 1, is always greater or equal to 1 minus x. So this is our standard expression in logarithm, and let's make use of this standard expression for our further derivation process. Now for time being, let's assume x to be equal to 1 divided by n pk. So after assuming x is equal to 1 by n pk, let me substitute in our expression 3, that which will give us ln of 1 divided by 1 by npk is always greater than or equal to 1 minus 1 divided by npk. Now I can move this npk onto my numerator. So after this, I'll multiply both sides with log to the base 2e times summation k starting from 1 to n pk. So if I do so, I'll be getting this as now here the LHS that I'm having here, it's nothing but the value that which I had in my expression number 2. So this expression is in turn equal to log to the base 2 n minus h of s. So what I can do is I can substitute log to the base 2 minus h of s in my current expression. Now I'll multiply this term here as well as here. So after multiplication and out here, I can easily cancel out pk on the numerator as well as on the denominator, and I'll be left out with. Now let me consider both these terms. So let this be term 1 and let this be term 2. Now term 1 is summation k starting from 1 to n pk. We already know that if I add all the probabilities of corresponding symbols, I'll end up with probability value equal to 1. In a similar way, if I think of my term 2, so this will be equal to, so I'll be adding 1 by n, how many times? N times. So in fact, it will be n times 1 by n. So n times 1 by n will be equal to, I can cancel out n and n over here, and I'll get it as equal to 1. And over here, 1 minus 1, both term 1 as well as term 2 are equal to 1. They are same in magnitude but opposite in their signs. So 1 minus 1 will result me in 0. Our LHS was log to the base 2 of n minus h of s. This is greater than or equal to log to the base 2e of 1 minus 1. Now 1 minus 1 is 0, and if I multiply anything with 0, I'll end up with 0. In fact, our RHS boils down to 0. Now I can move this h of s onto my right hand side, and if I do so, I'll get it as equal to, or if I rearrange this, I'll get it as h of s is always lesser than or equal to log to the base 2n, and hence I can conclude that h of s has an upper bound that which is equal to log to the base 2 of n, and entropy of a source cannot be greater than this value, where n is number of symbols contained by that source. and hence the maximum value that which entropy can take is always equal to log to the base 2 n. So after realizing upper bound for entropy, we can realize expression for source efficiency, and the source efficiency is mathematically defined as the ratio of average information conveyed by the source to that of the maximum average information, or in other words, efficiency of a source that which is represented as neta to the base s is equal to h of s divided by maximum average information, that which is h of s max. And because efficiency is always represented in terms of percentage, it's multiplied with 100%. So this is our source efficiency. In a similar way, we can define one more quantity called as redundancy of the source, and redundancy of the source is given as mathematically given as capital R subscript ns. This is in turn equal to 1 minus neta s, where neta s is source efficiency. So in fact this is equal to 1 minus, if I substitute the value for source efficiency, I'll get it as equal to h of s whole divided by h of s max. And if I take LCM over here, I'll have this expression as equal to, and in a similar way to that of source efficiency, redundancy of the source is given in terms of percentage. So thereby I'll multiply it with 100%. So in this class, we went through the third property of entropy, that which is upper bound on entropy, followed by we did also realize expressions for source efficiency as well as redundancy of the source. So we'll meet in our next class. If you are having any doubts, please do put it in the comment section. Thanks for watching.